Caravans set out under the last shreds of night, when the sand still feels cold enough to press your hands into. The moon guiding them over ridges that by midday will be too hot to touch. The camels and donkeys wear cloth drapes over their backs, not for ornament, but to shield them from direct sun. The fabric sometimes wetted with precious water so that it steams faintly in the morning air. For the travelers themselves, headcloths are wrapped with care, not tied but layered, creating a small dome where the air can move, where sweat can collect and cool before it's lost to the dry hunger of the wind. Water is never gulped. It is sipped slowly, held in the mouth before swallowing, so the body accepts it as relief rather than temptation to thirst. Breaks are taken in whatever shade the land will give, the lee side of boulder, the low wall of a ruin, even the shadow of the camel itself, cast wide enough at certain hours to crouch beneath. And always, there is an awareness of the horizon, of how far until the next water skin, the next cluster of date palms, the next flicker of green that means shelter. At night, the desert's cruelty and heat becomes its kindness and cool. And the travelers wrap themselves in blankets, not to sweat, but to keep the cold from sinking too deeply. By morning, the sand is once again a cool bed. The sky is a pale wash, and the cycle resumes. Each day an agreement between endurance and reward. The Egyptians did not conquer the desert, they befriended it, learned its moods, and shaped their journeys accordingly. The heat itself had gods and stories, as real to the people as wind in their hair or the river at their feet. Ra's daily journey across the sky was not just light but heat made divine, a presence to be respected, bargained with, a presence to be respected, bargained with, even placated when its gaze grew too fierce. The shade was not merely absence of sun, but a gift from deities like Hathor or from protective spirits woven into amulets and charms. Children were told that to walk too far from the shade. Children were told that to walk too far from the shade at the peak of summer was to invite the gaze of Sekhmet, lion-headed and fierce, who might mistake you for one of the enemies she was born to destroy. Stories like these were not superstition alone. They were practical warnings wrapped in divine authority. The gods were a way to give the sun's danger a face, to teach respect for its power without the need of numbers or measurements. Even Bastet, so often imagined as a gentle guardian, had her role in the balance of heat and cool. Her favor sought to keep the household comfortable through the harshest days. Offerings might be left in shaded niche. Incense burned in the cooler hours so its scent would linger when the day grew hot. The myths were as much as a survival manual as a fate, shaping habits that kept people alive. And when the evening came, when Ra descended and the land exhaled, the return of cool air was not taken for granted. It was a renewal, a blessing, a sign that the balance had been kept another day. When the heat begins to loosen its grip on the city, when the light tilts to gold instead of white, and the wind shifts just enough to stir the fringe of linen awnings, that is when the Egyptians turn cooling into celebration. It's not a matter of waiting until it's bearable. The evening is a threshold, and crossing it is an event in itself. In the broad courtyards of the temples, the stone still holds the memory of the sun, radiating a faint warmth that glows beneath bare feet. But above, the air is softening, drawing people out of shaded interiors and narrow lanes into open spaces. Festival days multiply this feeling tenfold. On the Feast of Opet or during the Great River celebrations, entire families drift towards the waterfront long before the moon has risen, each bringing some parts of the evening's comfort with them. A jar of beer still damp from the well, a basket of figs resting on cool reeds, a shallow dish of perfumed water to wash the hands before eating. The banks of the Nile, dark and glassy under the first stars, become a patchwork of flickering oil lamps and low mats. Those who arrive early claim the spots nearest the water's edge, where the air moves most freely, carrying the breath of the river in long, slow sighs. Children splash in the shallows, darting every fish that gleams silver in the lamplight, while elders sit with their feet in the water, cooling themselves as they talk in voices that mingle with the soft slap of the current. Boats pass close enough to hear their timbers squeak, each one strung with lanterns whose light trembles across the water, and from some of them comes music, a reed flute spiraling notes, the deep heartbeat of a drum, sounds that seem to travel differently over the river, wrapping the crowd like a shared cloak. Food is unrolled from the linen wraps, and even here, cooling is considered. Cucumbers cut lengthwise to release their moisture, dates soaked in wine to temper their sweetness, melon slices offered straight from the baskets that have been half buried in wet sand all afternoon, so that the flesh is as cool as dawn. When the dancing starts, it begins in the open spaces, where the air can move freely. Women sway with slow precision, arms making shapes like the arc of the moon, and the crowd claps in time. The sound sharp and quick but never rushed. The movement is a way to keep the body warm in the cooling air, while letting the heat of the day slip away. A physical reminder that comfort comes in cycles. Between songs, the dancers step into the shadows to sip water or beer, faces glistening not with sweat now, but with a faint sheen of night's moisture settling over the city. As the festival deepens into the night, cooling becomes almost invisible. It's in the loosened colors, the bare feet on damp grass, the way people lean back on their hands, so the breeze can touch more of them. Children fall asleep where they sit, heads tipped into the laps of parents who stroke their hair absently. Every so often, someone will rise to refill a jar from the river, the water dark and calm, carrying the stars as if they were cargo. These are not extravagant gestures, but they are deliberate. The same way a roof's shade or a clay jar's coolness is deliberate. The Egyptians don't merely escape the heat, they turn the relief into a moment worth gathering for, weaving it into their stories, their music, their fate. And always, the Nile is at the center. Even when the city sleeps, the banks hold pockets of life. Small clusters of fishermen who works best in the cool, their nets whispering into the water. Lovers who sit with knees touching, hands trailing in the current. Solitary figures who come only to breathe the damp air and let it draw the day's warmth from their skin. The river's goal is not a trick or a luxury. It's the oldest cooling system they have, one that needs no repair, no tending beyond the respect of its people. That respect shows in the quiet way the crowd disperses when the lamps burn low and the moon begins its descent, leaving the banks empty except for the ripple of water and the soft hiss of the reeds. Back in the neighborhoods, the rooftops are full again. After a festival, the air up there carries the ghost of music and the faint scent of lotus from the garlands worn by the dancers. Families lie under the sweep of the stars, listening to the slow breathing of the house as it releases its stored heat into the night. Somewhere nearby, a neighbor's laugh drifts upward. Somewhere else, the last notes of a flute fade into the dark. The cool has come fully now, but it's not the shock of stepping into a shaded room. It's a deep, quiet cool, the kind that settles into walls, into beddings, into bones. And tomorrow, when the sun climbs back into its place, the cycle will begin again. Shade and wind, water and patience, until the evening invites everyone once more to gather in the comfort they've coaxed from the land itself. The morning begins as it always does here, not with alarm or rush, but with a slow unfurling of light across walls that have been holding the night school like a secret. Before the sun has cleared the horizon, the air is still tinged with that river edge freshness, the kind that makes you want to linger with bare feet on the tiles just to feel it soak into your skin. In the courtyards, clay jars are lifted from their shaded corners, the water inside still wearing the cool breath of the hours before dawn. Women spread linen cloths across benches and window sills, so that the day's light will arrive filtered and softened, as though it too has learned the art of restraint. The rooftops are a tangle of half-sleeping forms, children curled in their mats, elders sitting upright to watch the river surface brighten by degrees. Down below, the streets are narrow rivers of shadow, their mud brick banks already working to preserve the night's gift. You hear the family's locals of merchants, the soft thud of baskets set down, the murmur of greetings. Even the animals move without urgency, cats slipping along the walls, donkeys swaying as they carry water jars back from the banks. It is in these early hours that the cycle renews itself, not by novelty but by repetition. The same shaded walls, the same dampened mats, the same careful placement of jars and bowls, each step as familiar as breathing, each done not because it is clever, but because it works. There is no thought here of beating the heat. There is only the understanding that the sun will come, and when it does, you will meet it prepared. By mid-morning, the city will have shifted into its daytime rhythm. Work in the cool interiors, streets quiet in the glare, meals taken in the stillness of shaded rooms. And when the sun begins to fall again, when the first shadows stretch across the rooftops, the people will emerge just as they did yesterday, just as they will tomorrow. The river will be there, the breeze will return, the clay will remember the night and give it back. If you look closely, you see that these methods are not merely tricks of architecture or craft. They are woven into the pace of life, into the way people speak, walk, rest, and rise. Cooling is not an interruption here. It is part of the story the city tells every day. A story written in shade and water, in wind and patience. And as you stand in the doorway, the air is still cool against your cheek. You realize that in a place like this, staying comfortable in the heat has never been about shutting the world out. It has always been about learning to live inside it, to let the land and the season shape your comfort as naturally as the Nile shapes its banks. The sun will climb, the heat will come, and yet, long before air conditioning was even imagined, the Egyptians has already mastered the art of greeting both with grace. The sun will rise again tomorrow. The sun will rise again tomorrow, just as it has for thousands of years. The heat will come, and yet, the answer will be the same as it was in the days of the pharaohs: shade, water, wind, and patience. The ancient Egyptians didn't conquer the heat. They learned its language, lived inside it, turned it into part of the story, and maybe, in their quiet way, they were telling us something. That comfort isn't always about shutting the world out, but about finding the places where the world offers comfort back. If you enjoyed walking the shaded streets with me tonight, there are more journeys waiting. Stories of survival, ingenuity, and the everyday magic of history. Until then, may the night bring you the cool you need, and may tomorrow's sun find you ready.